Welcome to Mindboost Moments, a podcast for those who want to hear from like-minded people and how they're making a dent in the world. So join me on my continued journey of learning and discovery. My guest today is Talia King, who's a Managing Director of Connectr Talent Technology. She's a self-proclaimed hugger, elevator of people, and our episode today focuses on how Talia strives to create an environment where people's skills are elevated and they do the things that they really enjoy. This is Mindboost Moments.
I've thought about what excites me and makes me fizz. That was the question. I think it's incredibly aligned to, so the product that my business has is about connection. So it's either there's basically a tool that you use during the recruitment process, and the USP of it is that you get to chat to someone who is in role at the moment. And then there's a deeper mentoring relationship once you're in role that's more about kind of retention and upskilling of individuals. But mentoring is the thread throughout the product. And it's so aligned to what I actually love doing, like chatting to you, a completely new person. And I honestly, every week, I probably chat to someone new, maybe 3 or 4 times. And they might be like a prospect customer. They might be someone who is also in the kind of, tech founding space. They might be someone who's reached out to me. So like I had a customer success manager reach out to me who's looking for a job at the moment. And I feel like that is what makes me feel excited and full, is like chatting to people. They don't have to always be new, but like connecting with people and learning about how they've got to where they've got to. And I could actually have like a very specific thing that I'm looking for advice on. So it might be, I've got this issue and I'd love to hear how you've tackled it. But I really hate sitting down and learning in like a very structured environment. I love learning through talking to people, which it's very ideal that what I personally love is completely aligned to what we have built in the product. I don't think that's a mistake. I feel like that has come through my own passion. But I think what genuinely excites me is like human connection and relationship and learning something from that. And then I particularly love it if I can take something that I've learned and trial it in our day-to-day. So like talking to someone about B2B SaaS marketing as an example, trialing a new tactic that they talked about and it working, or sometimes it fails, that's totally fine, but like bringing to life something that I've learned from a conversation, I think that's what really brings me joy in my day-to-day when I was thinking about that question.
And sometimes, so has that always come as second nature to you then, that you just enjoy those type of conversations?
Yeah, I think honestly, so I studied psychology, and I feel like that I don't know whether like that has made me more interested in people, or I did psychology because I was just naturally interested in people. But I mean, anyone who meets my mum is like, oh my God, she asks about a million questions, but she's so genuinely interested in all of the answers. And I would like to say I'm slightly scaled back version of my mum, but I do think it is like I've always been like it. And I'm interested in the depth beneath it. Like I really hate having very like transactional conversations that have no meat to it. I really want to understand like, why is that important to someone? What makes them feel alive? How did that make them feel in the moment? All of the like the feelings that come with whatever's happened. But obviously studying psychology, you are just studying human behavior in many different facets, which I'm sure has made me think even more deeply in that way. I think my mum has definitely impacted me as well.
But I think, and again, that's why you sort of say, well, behavior is, it sort of radiates off of people, and you find the natural stuff that you enjoy doing. And it's interesting because earlier, before this call, I was having a conversation with someone else about, connection and empathy and all of the stuff that makes us human. And like, what's the blocker then to not being like that? Because, it feels like it should come natural, but it doesn't. And I like, what advice would you give to someone who says, oh God, I can't imagine just having a conversation with someone I don't know and just chit chatting. What do you talk about? And like, how would you sort of help someone that feels like that?
I think so. We have this with the product. So that first initial connection feels incredibly daunting, and people are like, I really don't know what to talk to them about. I know I want to develop myself, but I'm not sure what to talk to them about. And honestly, the smaller you can make it, the better, because you can make it so specific and tiny. It could be, as a person, I mean, I'm obviously talking about a work context here, but it could be, I'm looking to improve how to do this formula on Excel. So boring and transactional, but normally it makes it less daunting about that first connection. And you then will build a relationship with that person through this specific problem that you're trying to tackle. If you're not naturally like interested in people, or you're not naturally gifted with the kind of art of conversation, I think if you go in with something incredibly specific that would benefit from you learning, then naturally the conversation will lead on to something that's a bit bigger. But I think the smaller that you can make it, if you're just generally like, I really don't want to learn anything and I don't want to speak to anyone, obviously that's a tricky thing. I've not met many people that really have absolutely no want to grow in any way, shape or form, but we've met many people that find that first connection very daunting. Have you met anyone that is like, I literally don't want to talk to anyone new?
I'm sure there has, and I can't think of a specific personal scenario off the top of my head, but I do. There's always those conversations where it feels like it's one-sided and you think you're putting in, more effort into a conversation than you're getting out of it. So you get the sense that, this is not a genuine conversation. But I think what I've sort of taken from some of those types of conversations over the years is you never know what's going on behind behind the sort of the face or whatever it may be. So that first of all, there's a conscious pause moment. Why is this person like this or doesn't want to open up? And then in order to open someone up a little bit, I mean, it's not rocket science for me. It's just trying to create that connection by just saying, so tell me a little bit about you, or, what's been happening with you today? And, it's asking certain questions and then waiting to listen. And I think it's that's the key, is that, like, just start listening to this person.
Yeah, I totally agree. So on the bios on the platform, we encourage people to bring as much of their like personality out. So they'll describe obviously their role, maybe a little bit of their career history, but they'll also talk about, I'm a working mum, or I love cats. And there's a cover photo that's often like something quite personal, like maybe their recent holiday trip they put there. And we actually took inspiration from Hinge, but there's like conversation starters that are very kind of, I guess, colloquial, or they're conversational. Yeah. Like my favorite ever destination is, and we're trying to build those, like, what is the connection that we can make? Because you're right, it's like there is, I mean, with most people there is something that you can connect on, but it might not be the most obvious thing. It could be this really niche area that they're interested in that actually is also something you're interested in. but you've got to dig into different areas of them.
I'm just thinking as well, do you still find that there's a reluctance to share personal information in a work environment? Well, we still got this sort of, no, I don't want to share that because that's, that's me, and I've got to have a work persona. And I don't know why we would need that. I mean, again, some people want to live a private life, but most of it's out there with social media, right? And like, if you're going to build up a genuine connection, aren't you sort of stepping in warts and all almost to go, well, this is me. Accept it for what it is.
I feel like most employers have shifted in the sense of be honest, be yourself. You can totally bring your whole self to work. And we've got people that are like, I'm LGBTQ plus, and this is how I feel supported by my employer, or I've got ADHD, and these are the things that I've shifted in my work to support my ADHD in this environment. And people are being really honest and like vulnerable in their bios. Where it doesn't happen, it's normally like the complete company culture and kind of any sort of, I guess, like honesty, or it's not a weakness, but like someone being vulnerable in that context isn't really celebrated. But I think it starts at the top down. So like you need your senior team, your C-suite being open and honest about mental health challenges they've got, barriers they've faced in their career, and that is what filters down. And obviously HR and L&D have a huge part to play in that. I do think it is massively shifted though.
I agree.
But there are still employers that breed a culture that doesn't necessarily encourage that.
Yeah, it's really odd, isn't it, when you think about why we almost put this work mask on for some reason, and then organizations wonder why there's not an inclusive environment, or there's the culture isn't quite working. We're getting a really odd vibe about the culture in it. Why is this? And like, well, you've got to be literally open to anything and everything, and if you're not, then that's the reason why people are being really protective about what's going on behind the mask and stuff. Like, I mean, most things should be accepted now, right? And as long as they're not hurting other people, like, it's really odd to sort of think about, certain things that you would go, I'm not going to put that on a bio because people will think wrong of me, or they'll think bad of me, or I'm not going to get promoted, or however people think.
It is wild because I feel like I live and breathe that message. But even when I moved from like a head of product role to the MD role, and my immediate kind of jump was that I was going to become a little bit more corporate, and I get really excited and probably overly excited, and that's kind of just like part of my personality. But I really dialed that back for a few months, and honestly it was actually harming the team, because obviously the reason I'd become in this MD role was actually probably somewhat because of that, because I was so passionate about what we were doing as an organization, and that drove the team. But my assumption of what a kind of really senior managing director looked like, I mean, I only lasted for a few months because it's also exhausting not really being yourself. But it was, even I, with everything that I believe and the product, that space that I work in, fell into the trap momentarily of not quite being myself, which it is just, it's wild.
Where did that come from then? That's really interesting.
Yeah, I really don't know where it came from, because my exec team would never have pushed that or thought that was right. I think it was probably just this version of what a managing director looks like and what I'd seen on LinkedIn or in other businesses, and a maybe more serious version of people, and me thinking that's maybe what I need to be. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
And then
yeah.
and then following on from that, what was the moment where you thought, hold on a second, what am I doing?
I honestly remember having a meeting where I was so excited about a new feature that we were developing. And I remember in my head being like, okay, dial it back, like be a bit more chill. But I was watching the team and I was thinking the fact that I'm not letting myself get as excited is actually dampening their mood on how they're feeling about
Yeah,
it. And I think it was that moment of just watching it play out and how it was impacting the team and thinking, I don't know why I'm doing this. This is stupid.
yeah.
'Cause it's really,
But
really not bringing a benefit to anyone here.
I think that's a really important point, though, that you in that moment you almost, looked at yourself and the impact you're making on the others. And
Yeah.
when people talk about, culture and behavior, it's little things like that, isn't it, that go,
Mm.
well, we better all be quiet because Talia's being
Yeah.
quiet.
Yeah.
And we can't show excitement, and that's where it all goes. It starts with one person, as you say, it's sort of leadership, because
Yeah.
what leadership do echoes throughout organizations. And then you get these urban myths to go, oh, you're not allowed to behave like that in a meeting, and someone goes,
Yeah.
and why?
Yeah.
Well, it's just what we do here.
Yeah. And I think it is me starting to realize that like how I am is actually really important for the team because I am at the top and I'm in my kind of I am setting the culture, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you
You're
do,
starting it.
yeah, you're starting it. And I feel like in that moment, I was recognizing maybe the fact that I wasn't really creating a culture that I necessarily wanted to stand by.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
it's a different pathway that you perhaps
Mm.
wanted for the sat nav.
Yeah. Just to change where we were going.
And just to sort of wrap that piece up, I'm just thinking, what version of Talia do you think the team respond better to, the corporate one or the one that flexes and watches?
That one, the second one.
Yeah,
I think honestly, just being completely yourself, and obviously, I'm not constantly excited, but I am pretty excited a lot of the time, and that comes through to the team. We have like key targets to hit. Our customers are everything to us, and the team is very clear on that. And I feel like we've got a really high
yeah,
performing team because of that. But we've also got a very driven and excited team because I feel like everyone can kind of we had a new person start with us recently, and it was probably the biggest compliment I've ever had. So he was saying that it was the first time he'd been in like a whole team meeting where everyone at whatever hierarchy they were had an equal voice in that meeting. And I was like, that is probably the biggest compliment that he could have
yeah.
made to me. Like that he didn't even tell me, by the way, he told someone else, but I was like, that is actually such a huge compliment. I'm so happy with that.
I suppose that the next evolution of that is almost build on that and forget the word hierarchy and just go,
Mhm.
well, we're all in this together.
Yeah. And honestly,
Yeah,
we didn't really have that much of a hierarchy. It's very flat, but he's come from corporate land where there is a hierarchy. So,
yeah, yeah,
but yeah, I know what you mean. Like that probably should just be like we're all one team.
yeah. And
Yeah,
we've all got an equal voice and we can bring our best self to work. I mean, we could talk all day on that. The other thing I wanted to know from you then is, well, what do you think your superpower is?
yeah. Again, I mean, when you asked me this, I did die a little bit inside. I did ask my team because I thought, you know what, I said to you what I thought my superpower was, and actually they did validate it, which was I feel like I'm really good at recognizing other people's strengths and kind of, I guess, getting the most out of them and then setting up a team environment where everybody's strengths can flourish. Because I feel like there's people's weaknesses, there's only so much you can do to improve someone's something that they're not particularly good at. Whereas if you completely elevate their strength, you can get so much value from that strength by just flourishing that part.
Yeah.
But it also makes someone feel great about themselves because they're like, I am actually sick at this part of my job. And my job is now twisted so that the strength that I'm amazing at is a big part of what I'm doing. And I think that is something that I am good at, is like recognizing what people's natural strengths are and then playing to that and setting up a team environment where they kind of are fairly harmonious in their strengths, if that makes sense.
And what, who wouldn't want to just only concentrate on the stuff that they're really good at? I mean, I suppose there is a challenge, isn't there, to say, well, do I just forget my weaknesses and never develop on them? But, that always makes up. It's just that you're homing in on what makes them unique, what they really good at, what can I use to keep stimulating that?
Yeah. And I think obviously people should work on their weaknesses, but I feel like so much of you is your natural self. And if you focus too heavily on it, it's just a waste of time. Like, make sure that you've got it competent enough that you can do your job if that's a skill that's needed for your job. But flourishing your strength can be, I mean, so powerful. One, for the business that you're working for, but two, for you, because you're majority of the time doing something that you're so naturally good at. It's just such a, good feedback loop for you.
Well, in Strategic Coach, which I was part of for a little while, they talk about unique ability. And so, if you identify what you love doing and what you're really good at, that's your unique ability. But in a day-to-day, you'll also have stuff that you're really bad at. On the opposite side, you'll have stuff that you're really bad at and you really don't enjoy. But that'll be somebody else's unique ability. And so the ideal is, if you could work that out and then pass that to somebody else who says, I don't know why you don't like that, because I love it and I'm really good at it. And everyone's doing their unique ability. What a performing team you would have.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that is my role, really, is looking at the team and being like, what unique abilities do we have here and what is missing out of the team? And do we need to develop that or do we need to hire that? But I think also it's like, there's parts of there's things that I'm really bad at and I need to hire and make sure I've got people that are great at that. But I think honestly, you're totally right. It's like a team environment where you've got all the different strengths pulling together, but they don't all have to be, they shouldn't be the same. That would be bad if they were the same.
Yeah, everybody's weakness. You're never going to go very far with that.
No.
And what's that thing then that turns that from an observation to a superpower to get that best out of people? What is it instinctive, or do you work on that to go, oh, I'm going to home in on bringing the best out of that person?
God, that is a really good question. How do I actually bring that to life? I mean, because we are kind of in the startup space, I feel like we are very lucky that we can test and learn a lot of the time. So I can often, like in big corporates, often you've got quite a set role. So the ability to push on a strength. Well, actually, there's often in corporate land, there's often kind of opportunities for you to get involved in wider stuff. Whereas in startup land, you're constantly trialing new things, which can normally align to someone's strength. So there's a girl in my team who we hired her as a researcher and her role has widened so much. And it has been just me being like, shall we try this? And when I say shall we, I mean, shall you try this? And I know it's so natural to what she is good at, but I'm pushing her out of her kind of specific job spec. It's good for the company because we're trialing something that potentially could be beneficial, but I'm also pushing her to to lean on that strength that I can see in her. But I don't know if that actually answers your question. Like, how do I bring that superpower to life, really?
I think some of that's instinctive, but I also think it's drawn out of necessity from the nature of your business and your operate the way that you operate, and as you reference in startup land, I do think so. I'm a believer that actually the job role just contains people, because actually what you want that person to be able to do is say, well, I work for Talia, I work for Connectr. And if someone then says, well, what do? You go, I do what's needed. I flex around it, but I just love working there because of, X, Y, and Z. And so, wouldn't it be amazing for any organization that you just had a team of, adaptable, flexible people that have got those, those mindsets that go, we're all just one team here and we get on with it, whatever's needed. The ambition is to always work in my unique ability. I know there's going to be times where I drop out of it, but that's my job role, operating in my unique ability.
Yeah. To be fair, it's been interesting because I feel like, so we work with like big corporate employers, and there's been such a shift recently about how job specs are done and shifting more into skills that we're hiring for rather than describing a job, which I honestly, I feel like in years to come, that is actually what's going to happen is people, I'm not even sure if there'll be job titles in the way that they're set up now. It will be the core skills that you're looking for, and you can flex. And that it feels like the people that are more kind of redundancy proof are those that they are aware of their skills, but they're very comfortable flexing into positions that at the time the business needs, because they're shifting for whatever reason. And they're very open to change, and it doesn't scare them.
Yeah. Because, and that's where we talk about, that's the difference between transactional stuff and actually human behaviors. And actually, that's going to be humanity's superpower, is being human. And it sounds really odd when you talk about it, but somewhere down the line we lost that, and we said, oh, technical skills and transactional skills are really important than being a human. And then lo and behold, companies are developing AI that can go, I can replace all those transactional things. And the humans are then going, well, what's my role? Oh, to be human. Well, what does that mean? And we're having to re-educate now.
Yeah. How to AI proof yourself. It is interesting because the people we work with, they often try and, I guess, highlight those who've had really squiggly careers. And it's not really like incredibly linear. I've got a promotion and it's all been clear. It's been like, I wanted to learn this skill, so I squiggled into this part of the business, and then I wanted to learn this skill, and then the list of skills that they've got because they've had that squiggly career is so rich. But you can also see they've ebbed and flowed with what's needed. Which I do feel like with the world the way it's going, we're going to have a very ebb and flowing workforce.
So do you think that's then the measure of the richness of someone, is how squiggly their line and their career pathway has been?
Yeah. I mean, obviously there are some people that have just been superstars and have just like jumped so cleanly into their position. I don't know if that many people have done that though. I do think, the more variety, but you really don't get that from a CV. I honestly, like when we're hiring, I feel like CVs are just like a drop in the ocean of what someone's experience is.
Yeah,
when you talk to them, there's so much richness to their experience, or there isn't, which can demonstrate something that a job title really can't.
I'm just, and so, sometimes you've got to match the right person to the right business as well, because I know in years previous, like the experience I've had and what I do, and certainly looking after a business, you basically do anything. But if you approach a business and they say, so what's your specialism? You go, I can do whatever, you do anything. It's like, okay, I'm not sure you're the right fit for this business then, because we're really looking at a laser sighted person that can say, this is my role. And I think we're in this transition at the minute that you go, it's either, skills based or role based, and we can see a future, but not every business is catching up with that.
A big part of the first product that we've got is trying to make sure that there is that fit. So the employer is very clear, this is the sort of person that we're looking for. This is the culture that we have created, and that if you're aligned to this culture, then you will fit in and thrive. But if this isn't the environment for you, and it's so different what businesses are looking for, because, what stage are they at? And that therefore creates a different type of person that they're looking to hire. But I do think you're right, like trying to find that good fit between an employer and employee is so key.
But if people want to learn more about what you're doing at Connectr or connect with you directly, Talia, what's the best way for people to do that?
I mean, they can find me on LinkedIn. My name is Talia King. Or they could go to connectr.com. That was another way to understand what we're doing.
Fabulous.
Lovely.
Thank you so much. This has been Mindboost Moments. If you enjoyed this conversation and want to hear more, subscribe wherever you get your podcast from. And if you want to learn how Mindboost can really add feeling and emotion to learning experiences within your business, check out our website at mindboostlearning.com.